Uh, I'm starting, right? No, we can question आप मुझे करना. हाँ हाँ ठीक. हाँ हाँ कोई बात. Uh, Hello everyone. I Randhir Kumar Gautam on behalf of School of Humanities and Social Sciences of Raffles University. I welcome everyone for this webinar, which topic is Challenges of Indian Democracy, Relevance Prakash Narayan. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce Professor Anand Kumar sir. Sir needs no introduction. He has always been a guiding light for us. Professor Anand sir is an internationally acclaimed sociologist, social activist, and national convener of Abhiyan. He served Jawaharlal Nehru University as a professor for more than 3 decades. Currently, he is a Nehru Fellow at NML, New Delhi. Sir has expert as well as activist knowledge on this very topic. Before his lecture, let me say a few words about Jayaprakash Narayan and context of this talk. JP, one of the most creative political thinker of post-independence India, and also uh, uh, was not just a thinker, but some of his ideas have also been translated into realities of Indian politics. The people's leader devoted his life for the people's politics. He was popularly known as Indian Lenin. He was the mirror of 20th century India. Let me give some biographical sketch so you new student can understand his context, right? As we know, Jayaprakash was born on October 11, 1902 in a small village on the border of UP and Bihar. He was a good student at school, but loved freedom from his childhood days. He married Prabhavati Devi. JP father-in-law was a prominent congressman and famous lawyer of his time. He brought Gandhi to Champaran. So you can see how significant a personality his father-in-law was. JP father-in-law wanted him to go to England for further studies. JP did not go to Britain, went to America in 1922 to continue his studies because he found uh, it boycotting uh, English run schools in India and going to England. So he was a kind of a staunch nationalist, right? After his post graduation, he made a deep study of the pros and cons of communism and became a pronounced Marxist. He got influenced by the work of M.N. Roy. The concept of radical democracy he brought from them after his return to India. He joined Congress party and gradually became uh, an acknowledged leader in some sense. Later, JP left Congress. Even Nehru wanted to join in his cabinet in 1952, but JP wanted Congress to implement socialist program, which Nehru was not ready. So JP stood apart, concentrating his effort on leading the Congress party towards socialist path with Acharya Indradev, Patwardhan, Lohia, and Mino Mansi helped him a lot in that context. Although he was thought of a successor of Nehru, and in fact, Lal Bahadur Shastri tried to pursue JP for that matter. But JP had no desire to wield power as party leader. Right from the beginning of his career, he looked for a different kind of politics for that matter. JP always repeated that his interest is not in the capture of power, but control of power by the people. Gandhi wrote his biography, Experiment with Truth. And if we theorize JP biographical self, I would say he experiments with ideology. Though he changed ideology, he never challenged or he never changed his own principle or values. We can see he began as a career as militant fighter for the independence of India. When India got freedom, he became Democrat, and when finally uh, become what he is known for, generally a non-violent revolutionary. Meanwhile, his personal detachment never weakened his social commitment. So, if you, in that context, if you try to understand his political engagement with Vinoba Bhave, he joined Vinoba Bhave because JP saw as an alternative to Marxism and British model of parliamentary democracy. Again, he disagreed with some principles and approaches of politics of Vinoba Bhave in the context of emergency. Vinoba did not accept direct action against Indira Gandhi and civil disobedience led by JP. Vinoba labeled the ongoing emergency as an era of discipline. But JP tried his best to convert it an era of dissent, which is a very foundational and fundamental thing as far as the development of democracy is concerned. But we can see by imposition of emergency, Indira Gandhi sought to shut up the spirit of dissent, which was a big political blunder. JP brought a social movement which is known as Sampurn Kranti, and many thinkers acknowledged the contribution of uh, 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 Sampurn Kranti, right? How JP led the unconventional wisdom and techniques uh, into a total revolution. Uh, to strengthen democracy was one of his central concerns. JP also uh, gave up idea of socialism because he understood socialism could not exist nor be created in the absence of democratic freedom. Uh, JP tried best to realize the idea what I called just democracy. For JP, democracy and caste are totally opposed. Democracy and corruption are totally opposed. Even democracy and unemployment are totally opposed. JP thought is against the idea of dictatorial leader, but some people branding him unfortunately a fascist. JP understanding of Kashmir and uh, international relations of South Asia is also very significant for that matter. He was a keeper of public conscience. He was involved in the resolution of the Naxalites. He made very remarkable work as far as the peace building of uh, uh, post-independent India is concerned. He has a deep understanding of nationalism when he says uh, 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 we practice, uh, we are living in a time when nationalism, as we practice, it creates more problems than it solves. And we see today's time nationalism for many has become a sense of egotism leading to self-aggregation. He wrote a very important book for this contribution. He got Magsaysay award also. That is a plea of reconstruction of Indian polity. Rajni Kothari and many important thinkers commented on that book. But the primacy of Lokniti over Rajniti is the hallmark of his ethics. He problematized the idea that true democracy could not be achieved only through agency of the state. In that context, Jayaprakash Narayan also disagreed with Ram Manohar Lohia. For various reasons, JP was against uh, party democracy. One particular reason is vote bank politics. He once said, voters are arbiters of destiny in a democracy. But in practice, vote catchers have become the arbiters of destiny of the people. This statement is true in the context of today's time also. While I was reading JP biography, I found something very interesting I would like to share with you. Janata Party came into power. Some asked Jayaprakash Narayan, what are you going to do now? And he replied with laughing a smile that I am going to criticize Janata Party government. Means to strengthen opposition was his important work that gave to Indian politics. JP teaches us how a partyless democracy becomes more powerful if public support is there. Democracy works only if it is nurtured and preserved. It is a matter of fact that both right wing fascists and left wing communists misinterpreted JP political thought. But JP exists in political discourse beyond the party or organization. He dedicated his life to strengthen democracy and causes of freedom. Social scientists like Sachidanand and Ore A. Appadurai acknowledged the contribution of total revolution. Besides this, we have Gail Omelette, Radha Kant Mukherjee, Bipin Chandra observation. They are very critical in that context. We know the fact that every revolution writes its own text, and we need to understand without any ideological lens. Today, we live in a time of crisis. The politics of polarization and divisiveness, the politics of crushing debates and dissent, JP has become more relevant today in the context of existing political setup in India. His quest for a struggle for democracy and total revolution is the most remarkable deed what he did for India. Democracy is something that could be taken for granted. It has to be nurtured and preserved from the onslaughts of authoritarianism. So, in that context, we are going to uh, listen uh, Professor Anand sir, and he will give the more sociological insights on this topic because crisis sociologically is a very significant because crises are fertile grounds of sociological creative thinking in any culture, in any history, in Durkheimian sense of social reconstruction. I won't take more time. Now I would like to invite Professor Anand sir to kindly deliver his lecture. Sir,
Uh,
over to
th-
you.
Thank you very much, Randir ji. You have
Thank you.
made my task a bit simple by giving such a precise background of the man and his life and mission, Jayaprakash Narayan. Friends, welcoming you to share my understanding of challenges of Indian democracy and relevance of Jayaprakash Narayan. I hope that in next 25 to 30 minutes, I'll present a few points, and then with help of Ranjit ji, we'll have some discussion or interaction in the form of comments and question answer so that it becomes a participatory engagement. As Ranjit ji told you, Jayaprakash Narayan was born in the beginning of last century, 1902, in a remote village of eastern UP. He lived for 77 years, a very eventful life, which can be divided in three parts. From birth till 1929, he grew up as a bright young man by studying in Patna and then various universities of United States of America, and did his master's in social sciences. He returned to India, and from 1929 to 1954, he worked as a patriotic Marxist who was also founder of the Congress Socialist Party within the Indian National Congress, and went to jail several times and did exemplary leadership during Quit India movement in between 1942 and 1946. He was considered as the most dangerous and militant freedom fighter by the British during the Quit India movement of 1942. But after 1954, he withdrew from party politics and gave his life for promotion of the Gandhian way called Sarvodaya, and put his energy and reputation together with Acharya Vinoba Bhave to solve the land problem, which was called Bhudan movement, voluntary gift of 1/6 of your land for the landless laborers around the country. But in 1974, he returned to mass politics, and from 1974, he became proponent of total revolution because he found that Indian democracy is becoming a diseased democracy. Its problems are not a carryover of the foreign rule, but they are product of our own post-colonial politics and political class, and it needs immediate course correction. Now, if we talk about challenges of democracy today, everybody who is an Indian citizen or who understands India today will give you a list of major problems. What are the major problems? I will not ask you to tell me right now, but I'll advise you to list three top problems according to your understanding of Indian democracy and how those problems can be solved. In Jayaprakash time, one of the emerging problems was increasing role of money power, particularly illegally earned money, which is also called black money, in politics and governance, affecting elections and creating deviations in developmental dynamics. Money power, Dhana Shakti. And democracy is all about Jana Shakti, Loko Shakti. A second problem, which must be before your eyes also, is increasing centralization of power. Personality politics. In his time, we had two towering leaders. First, Jawaharlal Nehru, who was Prime Minister from 1947 to 1963, nearly 15 years. And second was Indira Gandhi ji, who was Prime Minister from 1965 till 1984, when she was tragically assassinated by her bodyguards. In between, for 2.5 years, she was not in power during the post-emergency years. And today we have a towering figure who is there in our life, invited or uninvited, Prime Minister Narayan Modi, who is having his second term. And everything seems to revolve around Sri Narayan Modi, his wisdom, his capacity, his decisions, and his choices, his preferences, his liking, his disliking. This is result of centralization of power, which is again against the spirit of our federal system, which is a unitary federation where the promise of the constitution was decentralization, so that governing capacity is devolved to the village and ward level. गांव सरकार, जिला सरकार, Rajya Sarkar, Kendra Sarkar, four layers of or four levels of governance. We have built two levels very effectively, central government and provincial governments. But where is the district government? What is the condition of district apparatus of governance, apart from bureaucratic structure of district magistrate and superintendent of police? People's representation and people's participation in district level governance is negligible. And if you go further down at the village or ward level, it becomes invisible. Grassroots democracy is not in the making. So centralization. And third problem is representation deficit. We are a representative democracy, right? We vote to elect our representatives. They must represent our society. That is our expectation. Look at the society from gender perspective. We are nearly 50-50, right? As many men as women. But how about our parliament, our assembly? No assembly in the country has more than 20% women, whereas no state in the country has less than 49%. In fact, Kerala has got, northeastern states have got 51 to 52% women. And in our parliament, never in last 70 years, no matter which party was ruling, which alliance was ruling, which prime minister was ruling, male or female, women representation was always less than 15%. Gender deficit. Then the country has rich and poor population, but ratio of rich is probably 25 to 75% poor people. We were told by Arjun Sen Gupta committee, which was appointed to inquire into the condition of unorganized working population, which is 93% of our workforce, that 77% of our people have less than 100 rupees per day purchasing power. But in our parliament, nearly 2/3 of the parliamentarians today are crorepati. In population, they are less than 10%. In parliament, they are less than more than 75%. And poor are becoming more and more invisible. So gender deficit, class deficit, and now the third deficit. India is a land of various religions, but there has been declining representation of non-Hindu population in the parliament, which is around 18 to 20%. There's a large category of 100+ million people. They are called DNT people, denotified tribe people. 100 million, 10 crore. How many of them are in the parliament? Negligible, because they are not categorized as DNT people. Somewhere they are OBC, somewhere they are SC, somewhere they are ST. And within SC, ST, and OBC, you will find a handful of dominant castes. So the third problem with our democracy is our representation deficit. Now the fourth problem, and that is our party system. Most of the parties of India began as mass parties with ideological core and an involving organization. Today, but for the ruling party, Bharatiya Janata Party, and left parties, all other parties have become personality parties. There is a new problem which has been growing since 1960s. It's called nepotism, parivarvad. Recently, a book has been made by a political analyst, Kanchan Chandra, which has looked at 43 parties of India and found that most of the 43 parties are run like family affair, private limited company, whereas parties are supposed to be instrument of democratization, citizenship building. When the leadership, top leadership is nepotistic, then district level is also affected by the same attitude. Bahu, beta, beti, damad, bhai, bhatija, upar se leke niche tak. Then these parties become agencies of patronage and not agencies of power to the people. Now, what is the solution? There are two categories of people, pessimists and optimists. The pessimists say that there is no solution. This is how it has to be. This is a capitalist system. So money power will run supreme. Why are you bothering about it? Try to make money and enter politics. If you don't have money, stay away from politics. Very wrong understanding. Democracy has been in the making because of the power of the people, not power of the rich. Rich never wanted democracy, neither in France, nor in England, nor in America, nor in India. Even today, if you have a kind of referendum among the rich of the world and rich of India, whether we should have democracy or we should have a government without all these problems of protest, opposition, etc., etc., the rich will say, oh, no, we don't need democracy. We need good government, a genuine, honest, leadership-based government. Hitler was supported by rich of Germany and Mussolini was supported by rich of Italy. Very strange, paradoxical situation. The pessimists also say that party system is going to be built upon charisma of the leader. Yes, leadership has a role according to political theories. But leadership and party building are two different things. Parties are articulation of interests of the society. Various interest groups come together, or a particular interest group stays together and creates a party. Not a personality. People may come and go. Suppose a leader is very popular, very efficient, very honest, very dedicated. But like Gandhi, if he or she is killed, Indira Gandhi was killed, many others have been shot. John Kennedy was killed, President of America. So did it destroy Democratic Party of America, Indian National Congress of India? No. Why? Because they were based upon leadership as well as organization power. Today, most of the parties are personality, charisma based, and that makes our democracy very distorted. Now, if these are major problems, I'll leave the others for you to consider, but there are many problems like development deficit, pervasive corruption, problem of marginality of the poor, increasing voicelessness of majority of the people, manipulation of the media, very strange role of judiciary, but I leave it. I leave all of them. I stay only for four major problems. The problem of money power, Dhan Shakti versus Jan Shakti, problem of representation, problem of representative democracy versus participatory democracy, problem of seat and centralization of power, and problem of party system. What is relevance of Jayaprakash Narayan ideas? Jayaprakash Narayan looked at the situation in 1960s and 70s from very close quarters. He was a non-party observer and non-party participant. And he found that the problem begins through the election process. Because elections are becoming costly, leaders are mobilizing money from desirable as well as undesirable quarters. After winning the election, these leaders are bound by their relations with these money powers, and then they twist the policies of the government in favor of the rich, ignore the poor. And this goes on for 5 years till the next election arrives. He also found that the election system is vitiated by appealing to our baser elements, instincts like casteism and communalism, promoting fear of each other, Brahmin versus Dalit, OBC versus general category, Hindu versus Muslim, North versus South, local people versus the migrant people. And this creates vote bank politics. Earlier, there was no need of this politics because there were organized political parties contesting the election. Congress, Socialist, Communist, Jansangh, regional parties, Akali Dal, DMK. Today, most of the organizations are divided, split on personality lines, And but for BJP and communists, all other parties from Indian National Congress, the oldest democratic party of this country, to the youngest party, which is ruling today in Andhra Pradesh by Jagan Mohan Reddy, most of them are family enterprises. Na khata na bahi, jo Netaji kahe wahi sahi. And if Netaji is passing away by accident or because of health reasons, the leadership is handed over not to the second most qualified person in the party, but to the son or daughter of the leader. Most of the time, this succession is done in the lifetime of the leader itself. Now, Jayaprakash was arguing for electoral reforms so that there is low-cost election, state funding of election, and elections are fought on the basis of manifesto and work of the parties rather than money power. Is that a good solution or a bad solution? In many countries of the world, elections are funded by the state. Citizens are paying tax to fund the election because election is an investment in our political future. We are not investing in our election system. Money brokers, power brokers are investing in it. Earlier, it was less dangerous in time of Jayaprakash Narayan because it was only national interest groups competition. Today, global companies are in our field, Chinese, Russian, American, French, German, British, you name it, and they're there. And they're investing money in our election process to win their favorites. And those favorite people, after coming into power, are making policies favoring these corporations, national and global. Is that a healthy situation? Or it is a fraud, bogus system? Jayaprakash's solution was a threefold solution. First, election reform to make elections less expensive, funded by the state, as it is in Germany and many other democratic countries. Second, reforming the party system, making parties accountable to their constitution and accountable to the Constitution of India. Election Commission is playing a very feeble role in regulating our party systems functioning. And these party systems are promoting a personality cult in our public life. They have no internal democracy. So democratization of Indian society is becoming weaker and weaker. Jayaprakash argued for moving from party-based democracy to partyless democracy, citizens' democracy, Lok Shakti, concern, consciences, and creative citizenship. Look at our citizenship record. You will find people of various castes, communities, categories, but you will find very few Indians. The idea of India is becoming weak. The proud of being Indian is vanishing with the passage of time. We were very proud Indians during the freedom struggle. Subramaniam Bharati, many others who did not write their caste name, they would put name of India with their identity. But today, there is problem of identity politics. It is being promoted by political class in search of vote bank, and this is weakening the idea of India. And finally, representation and centralization of power. Jayaprakash Narayan, following Gandhi and Gandhian way of thinking, argued for decentralization of power. He wanted the Gram Sabha to have maximum power of decision making in terms of local well-being, water, health, education, irrigation, transport, employment generation, security, and progressively decreasing the role of the state from village to district to state to the center. But today there is more and more centralization of power, including employment generation. You know that we have an employment guarantee scheme called Manrega, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, where 95% of the funding to each village is coming from the central government of India. Is it centralization or decentralization? We have GST system now. where the money is first collected by the state and then given to the, for the first collected by the state, meaning central government of India. Then central government is sharing the resources collected with the state governments, and often state governments are complaining. Recently, we had this coronavirus. Everything was super centralized. But for those states where health system was fairly decentralized and regulated at the panchayat level, like Kerala, all other states were feeling so vulnerable and helpless. And all sick people were being transported from district headquarters to state headquarters, Lucknow, Patna, Bhopal, Jaipur. And elite was rushing to Delhi. Why? Centralization. And this applies equally, sadly, in field of employment, water management, environment management, education, health, all over. Prakash Narayan suggested to move away from representative democracy to participatory democracy by giving not only right to vote to all citizens, but also right to recall. Today, when we vote for a particular constituency, a man or a woman is elected for next 5 years. But after getting elected, do they remain accessible and accountable? No, most of the time, no. And that's why in every next election, 50% of the sitting people are either denied ticket by the party or are defeated by the voters. Such a bad, distorted relationship between the elected and the electing people. Prakash Narayan wanted representatives to behave properly and be social servants by giving not only right to vote, but also right to recall to ordinary voters. This is now a missing link. To make our representatives accountable, we need a mechanism. There is no mechanism. We need mechanism. Otherwise, they become careless, irresponsible, and often criminally corrupt. So, to summarize, Prakash Narayan was one of the few thinkers of our time who looked at the realities of Indian democracy from a non-party manner, and he connected his experiences of the freedom struggle, training by Gandhi and Nehru and Subhash, and his own understanding of the grassroots realities, because he worked from 1954 to 74 in the villages, and he faced the challenges of party leaders as well as Naxalists, Maoists, and he found that most of their grievances were genuine. They were angry for right grounds. They were using wrong methods, but their complaint has to be addressed democratically, otherwise democracy will become marginal, useless. What Prakash Narayan suggested was in line with what Dr. Ambedkar and Dr. Rajendra Prasad warned us in 1949 when the Constitution was being gifted to the people of India by the Constituent Assembly. Baba Sahib Ambedkar warned us that from today, that is 26 November 1949, we are entering into an age of contradictions. What are the contradictions? We will have political equality because of the right to vote, but we will still have persistence of social inequality, caste system, communalism, majoritarianism, and class system, economic inequality. Unless we address the challenges of economic and social inequality and harmonize it with political equality, our system will be vulnerable to destruction. This was also reformulated by Dr. Rajendra Prasad when he said that any constitution is a book of rules and regulations. But it depends upon the material, human material, the character of the people who will be running the affairs of the country here onwards, whether we will have implementation of the promises of the Constitution, or we will have a system of disappointment. I leave it to all of you to make your own assessment and go further for the dialogue. I request Randir ji to conduct the next 19 minutes as a
Okay,
form of question answer. I already have a question
okay,
from Bharat Singh. Anyway,
just
Randir.
okay. Sir, I think I'm going to do the same thing. So Bharat Singh is asking, sir, I have a question. Today, the media managing public opinion with manufactured consent, and because of this, propaganda has become truth. So in that context, how can we educate voters? Sir, this is a very important question, I think.
यस भरत सिंह जी, ये प्रोपेगेंडा के बारे में, प्रचार के बारे में हम लोग
Mhm,
समाज विज्ञान में पढ़ते पढ़ाते रहे। प्रोपेगेंडा या प्रचार कोई नई समस्या
mhm,
नहीं है। ये किसी के भी हक में होता है कि वो अपनी बात को सुंदर से सुंदर तरीके से आपके सामने रखे और उसमें कुछ मिर्च मसाला मिला के रखे। आपके लिए सच जानने का तरीका ये रहता है कि जो मुकाबले में और लोग हैं वो सिक्के का दूसरा पहलू आपके सामने लाएं। और मीडिया के बारे में भी माना जाता था कि ये निष्पक्ष रहेगा। तो अखबार में दो हिस्सा रहता था, खबरों का, लेखों का और विज्ञापन का। अब
mhm,
विज्ञापन ही अखबार बन गया है, क्योंकि
mhm,
कंपनियों के मालिक नेताओं और दलों के साथ मिलकर के एक प्रयास करते हैं कि खबर और विज्ञापन का अंतर मिटा दिया जाए। इसमें आशा की किरण सोशल मीडिया है। सोशल मीडिया में बात खुल जाती है, लेकिन जो पत्रकारिता का अभी का रूप है, खासतौर पर अखबार और टेलीविजन, ये तो पूरी तरह से आपको और हमको अपने आश्रित ला करके पैसा कमाने का जरिया हो गए हैं। इसमें एक बात जरूर सच है कि जब भेद खुल जाता है तो उसकी साख खत्म हो जाती है कि ये तो इस पार्टी का
mhm,
अखबार है। आज भी ज्यादातर अखबार और टेलीविजन के बारे में अगर मैं पूछूं, भरत जी, ये टेलीविजन मुझे आज देखना है शाम को, कौन सा टेलीविजन खोलूं, तो आप कहेंगे साहब ये खोलिएगा तो ये इस पार्टी का है, उसको खोलेंगे तो उस पार्टी का है। और अगर देश के बाहर का कोई खोलेंगे तो बीबीसी अमेरिका के बारे में कुछ बोलेगा, CNN ट्रम्प के बारे में, हर के बारे में जनता, जैसे मजाक में अखबार में और टेलीविजन के बारे में कहा जाता है, फिल्मों में डाला कि जनता सब जानती है। तो लोग जान तो जाते हैं, लेकिन फिर भी मजबूरी में ऐसा माहौल बन गया है कि कुछ समय के लिए ये खतरा लोकतंत्र पर आ गया है कि हम सांप और रस्सी का फर्क नहीं समझ पा रहे हैं। मीडिया अपने कारणों से रस्सी को सांप और सांप को रस्सी बता रही है, और जब छले जाते हैं लोग तो फिर मीडिया की साख खत्म होने लगती है, जो अपने आप में अच्छी बात नहीं।
बहुत सर एक और क्वेश्चन आ चुका है मीनवाइल Nisha Gandhi is asking question about how can we strengthen democracy within a party?
ये भी बहुत अच्छा सवाल है निशा जी। अगर आप ऐसी पार्टी में हैं जो नई पार्टी है, स्थानीय पार्टी है, किसी जाति पर आधारित है, और उस जाति का कोई एक मजबूत नेता है जिसके पास पैसा भी है, तो उस पार्टी को तो आप राम भरोसे छोड़ दीजिए, क्योंकि वो नेता के साथ पैदा हुई, नेता के साथ मर जाएगी। लेकिन अगर कोई ऐसी पार्टी है जिसमें कई तरह के लोग हैं, अलग अलग जातियों की जगह है, देश भर में वो फैली हुई है, और उसका प्रयास है कि वो सबके लिए एक पार्टी आशा की बने, तो वहां जरूर आप समीक्षा का काम कर सकती हैं, आलोचना का काम कर सकती हैं। जब आप समीक्षा का काम करेंगी तो कुछ समय के लिए आपको ये भूल जाना होगा कि आपको पार्टी में कोई पद मिलेगा, आपको पार्टी टिकट देगी। तो अगर आप इस कीमत को देने के लिए तैयार हैं तो आप अपनी पार्टी की सुधारक बन सकती हैं। कभी भी आलोचना करने वाले को कोई पसंद नहीं करता, उनकी दिमाग की बनावट सामंती हो जाती है, लेकिन बाकी सदस्य, बाकी समाज आपको पसंद करेगा। इसीलिए पुराने समय में हर पार्टी में आलोचकों का बड़ा सम्मान होता था। गांधी के आलोचकों का साथ सुभाष बाबू का बड़ा सम्मान था, क्योंकि वो गांधी जी के साथ सहमत नहीं होते थे और आलोचना करते थे। और एक बार तो गांधी जी को चुनौती दे के गांधी के उम्मीदवार को उन्होंने कांग्रेस की अध्यक्षता में हरा भी दिया था। कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी में भी इंटरनल क्रिटिसिज्म की कीमत है। आरएसएस और बीजेपी में पहले होती थी, आजकल का मुझे समाचार नया नहीं मालूम, क्योंकि वहां आलोचना और आलोचकों की खबर कम है। जो पारिवारिक पार्टियां हैं उनके बारे में सबको मालूम है कि अगर आलोचना करना है तो अपना बोरिया बिस्तर बांध लो, यहाँ पर तो न खाता न बही, जो नेताजी कहें वही सही।
थैंक यू सो मच सर।
सर एक क्वेश्चन इसी से रिलेटेड और पूछना चाहूंगा मैं।
हाँ हाँ पूछिए।
हाँ सर, जब हम पार्टी पॉलिटिक्स में जितनी भी प्रॉब्लम्स है, वीकनेस है, इनकी बात करते हैं तो हम एक अल्टरनेटिव पॉलिटिक्स के लिए देखते हैं। इंडिया अगेंस्ट करप्शन के मूवमेंट से हमने लगा कि एक अल्टरनेटिव दिखेगा, लेकिन वैसे जैसे ही आम आदमी पार्टी आता है और ये अल्टरनेटिव नहीं दे पाता है, फेल हो जाता है, तो ऐसे कंडीशन में मतलब वो फेल क्यों हो जाती है और इसमें लोग क्या कर सकते हैं?
इसको तो आपको डॉक्टर रणधीर गौतम जी भी क्लास में बताएंगे। मैं आम आदमी पार्टी में था, अन्ना आंदोलन में भी था। उसके पहले मैं जनता पार्टी जो बनी थी, उसका जो जयप्रकाश जी के नेतृत्व का आंदोलन था 74 वाला, तब मैं जेएनयू का विद्यार्थी था, उसमें भी शामिल था संपूर्ण क्रांति के आंदोलन में। तो भ्रष्टाचार के खिलाफ सरकार के आचरण को काबू में लाने के लिए हमेशा समाज में एक बेचैनी रहती है, लेकिन कोई भी सरकार पूरी तरह से भ्रष्टाचार से मुक्त नहीं हो पाती है, क्योंकि उसकी निगरानी की व्यवस्था बड़ी कमजोर रहती है। वो नेताओं की नीयत पर छोड़ दिया जाता है, और जनता भी वोट देने के बाद अपना ही लगाया पेड़ है तो कैसे काट दें बर्दाश्त करती है, और तब फिर धीरे धीरे पेड़ में से बजाय फल के कांटे गिरने लगते हैं। तब कहते हैं कि ये पार्टी बेकार हो गई, नेता बेकार हो गया, तब तक देर हो जाती है। अभी एक बात है, राइट टू इंफॉर्मेशन। अगर सूचना के अधिकार के अंतर्गत पार्टियां आ जाएं, तो आप और हम जैसे लोग उनके रुपए के बारे में, उनके खर्चे के बारे में, उनके विधि विधान और नीति के बारे में सवाल उठा सकते हैं। आपको जान के अफसोस होगा और मैं शर्मिंदा हूं कि भारत की विभिन्न राजनीतिक दल कुल एक मुद्दे पर एक हैं, कम्युनिस्ट से लेकर बीजेपी और कांग्रेस से लेकर के सपा बसपा, और कोई मुद्दा नहीं। वो कहते हैं कि हमको राइट टू इंफॉर्मेशन के अंतर्गत नहीं आना है। हम पैसा कहां से लाते हैं, कैसे खर्च करते हैं, किसको टिकट देते हैं, क्या फैसला करते हैं, ये हमारी मर्जी, आप कौन है पूछने वाले। ये बहुत दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण राष्ट्रीय सहमति है। इसके खिलाफ नागरिकों को बगावत करनी ही पड़ेगी। आप भारत के लोकतंत्र के अंतर्गत एक व्यवस्था है, एक पार्टी है। आपको भारतीय संविधान और भारतीय जनता का सम्मान करना सीखना पड़ेगा। आप अगर हम लोगों को गैर जरूरी समझते हैं तो ये गलत सोच है। तो ये जो सूचना का अधिकार है, ये एक खिड़की है कि आप इनकी निगरानी कर सकते हैं। और ये जो आंदोलन का आपने कहा, हर आंदोलन से जो परिणाम निकलता है कि थोड़ी देर के लिए पार्टियां डर जाती हैं। ये खाली आम आदमी पार्टी की बात नहीं है, बाकी पार्टियों को भी लगता है कि इस बार उनकी खबर ली, अगली बार हमारी भी खबर जनता लेगी। थोड़ी देर के लिए सुधार रहता है, तो वो फिर हमको बराबर करना ही पड़ेगा। जैसे रोज हम घर को सवेरे उठते हैं तो पहला काम माँ या हम क्या करते हैं, घर को साफ करते हैं, और जानते हैं कि शाम होते होते फिर गंदा इकट्ठा होगा। दूसरे दिन फिर क्या करते हैं, फिर घर की सफाई करते हैं। तो जैसे बर्तन को हम इस्तेमाल करने के पहले एक बार धोते हैं, खाने के बाद उसकी सफाई करते हैं, फिर बर्तन इस्तेमाल करते हैं, ऐसे ही व्यवस्था का भी, प्रशासन हो, न्यायपालिका हो या विधायिका हो, उसको हमें लगातार झाड़ते पोछते रहना पड़ेगा। एक बार की सफाई काफी नहीं होगी।
Now, any other? I have two more questions, sir. Sir, how much time you have?
You have another 10 minutes, my dear. I have another lecture
Okay.
at 5 o'clock.
Okay. Sir, Ruchi Verma is asking, sir, in a democracy, we have our right to vote, but when one person votes according to their own interest, like we see today, but oftentimes the price has been paid by the vulnerable section of the society. Example, we see today the rape culture, farmer protest, a student voice being silenced, and so on and so forth. So, what can be the viable solution in three descriptive time, which is a very big challenge to our
ये जो
democracy?
रुचि जी ने सवाल उठाया है, ये
Mhm.
सबसे तकलीफ देह हिस्सा है हमारे लोकतंत्र के अभी के अनुभव का। हमको ये समझना है कि लोकतंत्र अपने आप में एक परिणाम है प्रक्रिया का, जिसको कहते हैं लोकतांत्रिकरण, डेमोक्रेटाइजेशन। इसको खाली सरकार में वोट के जरिए चुने लोगों को भेजना ही नहीं, पार्लियामेंट से लेकर परिवार तक लोकतांत्रिकरण की प्रक्रिया को प्रभावित करना रहता है। परिवार में बच्चों को, स्त्रियों को बोलने का अधिकार मिलना, सदस्यों के बीच में असहमति के बीच से सहमति निकालना, मोहल्ले में, सामुदायिक जीवन में परस्पर संवाद, सहयोग, वाद विवाद, स्कूल कॉलेज में डिबेटिंग सोसाइटी, स्टूडेंट यूनियन, टीचर यूनियन, दफ्तर में, कारखाने में, पंचायत में, और तब जाकर के अगर हम अपने चुने लोगों से सरकार चलाते हैं तो कहेंगे पूरा लोकतंत्र आ गया। अभी लोकतांत्रिकरण की प्रक्रिया 70 साल से चल रही है, और जैसा मैंने कहा कि अभी औरतों को नेतृत्व में जगह नहीं मिली है, अल्पसंख्यकों की जगह घट रही है, गरीबों की जगह घट रही है, और पूरी न्याय व्यवस्था पर पैसे वालों का बोलबाला है, मीडिया पर पैसे वालों का बोलबाला है। ये लोकतंत्र का यू टर्न हो रहा है, हम लोकतंत्र से कहीं पीछे जा रहे हैं। वो क्या है कहना बड़ा मुश्किल है। कुछ लोग कह रहे हैं कि फासिज्म है, कुछ लोग कहते हैं तानाशाही आ रही है, कुछ लोग कह रहे हैं सांप्रदायिकता आ रही है, कुछ लोग कह रहे हैं गुंडों का राज आ रहा है। अलग अलग राज्यों से अलग अलग रिपोर्ट आ रही है। लेकिन जैसा आपने कहा कि जो अपेक्षाकृत कमजोर हिस्से हैं, जैसे औरतें, सारे हिंदुस्तान की औरतें कहती हैं अगले जन्म मोहे बिटिया न कीजो, क्योंकि औरत होने की उनको सजा दी जा रही। और न्यायपालिका में, पुलिस में, प्रशासन में गरीबों के प्रति कोई हमदर्दी नहीं है। तो इसको सुधारने का तरीका यही है कि लोकतंत्र को और विकेंद्रित किया जाए, प्रतिनिधियों को और जिम्मेदार बनाया जाए। उसमें राइट टू रिकॉल बहुत बड़ी चीज है। जब हमने आपको एक बार चुन लिया तो आप 5 साल के लिए हमारे राजा हो गए। अगर ये डर बना रहेगा कि हमने अगर गुंडों के साथ दिया, औरतों के अत्याचारियों का साथ दिया, गरीबों के बारे में चुप रहे, तो 3 महीने के अंदर हमारी कुर्सी चली जाएगी, लोग जनमत संग्रह करके हमको हटा देंगे, तो उनको डर रहेगा। अभी तो कोई डर ही नहीं है। उन्होंने ठेका ले लिया अगले 5 साल गुंडई के और अपराधियों के साथ मिलके चलने का, और आप नाराज होंगे तो होते रहेंगे, उनके खाते में तो करोड़ों जमा हो गए। इसलिए राइट टू रिकॉल जयप्रकाश जी ने कहा कि बहुत जरूरी है। इसीलिए आज भी जो राजनीतिक सुधार के मंच और संगठन हैं, वो कहते हैं कि 1974 में जो जयप्रकाश जी ने समाधान दिए थे, आज 70 साल बाद और भी प्रासंगिक हो गए हैं। ये अफसोस और शर्म की बात है कि जयप्रकाश जी के सहारे से जो लोग सत्ता में आए, उन्होंने कोई सुधार नहीं किया। और आज और भी शर्म की बात है कि जयप्रकाश जी का जिंदाबाद लगाने वाले जो नौजवान कल के थे 74 की आंदोलन में, जब वो सत्ता में आए हैं राज्यों में, केंद्र में, वो भी जयप्रकाश का बताया रास्ता भूल गए, उनको दिया वायदा भूल गए। अब ये वायदा खिलाफी है, इसकी सजा तो मिलेगी, कब मिलेगी कहना मुश्किल है। दूसरा सवाल था अदिति चौधरी का कि ये मीडिया प्लेटफॉर्म्स आर एडवर्टाइजिंग फॉर देयर ओन प्रॉफिट rather than distributing news and facts. In such a situation, people like us don't know much about politics. Then in such case, how do we build our own opinion when we see everyone throwing their own opinion around? How do we find out what is the right thing? देखिए अदिति, इसमें तो हमको, जैसे आप क्लास में रोज थोड़ा थोड़ा सीखती हैं और 2 साल के बाद आप मास्टर इन पॉलिटिकल साइंस, सोशियोलॉजी होती हैं, रोज थोड़ा थोड़ा हमको समाज के बारे में सीखना पड़ेगा, सुनना पड़ेगा। राजनीति के 2 चेहरे हैं। एक तो धंधे के रूप में है कि लोग इससे रोटी कमाते हैं, 4 लगाओ 40 बनाओ, और दूसरा है राजनीति नागरिक धर्म के रूप में। आप अपनी जिंदगी की रोटी किसी और तरीके से कमा रही होंगी, लेकिन समाज के सजग नागरिक के तौर पर आपको निगरानी की भूमिका, जैसे आप घर के मोहल्ले की सुरक्षा के लिए देखते हैं रात में सोने के पहले कि दरवाजा खुला तो नहीं है, चौकीदार जाग रहा है कि नहीं जाग रहा है, वैसा ही आपको हमको सजग नागरिकता की जरूरत है। यही जयप्रकाश नारायण ने कहा था, लोक शक्ति या नागरिक शक्ति, और स्टूडेंट्स के लिए कहा था यूथ फॉर डेमोक्रेसी, स्टूडेंट्स फॉर डेमोक्रेसी, सिटीजन्स फॉर डेमोक्रेसी। ऐसे मंच बनाने पड़ेंगे जो चुनाव के जरिए कुर्सी नहीं पाना चाहते, लेकिन चुनाव में निगरानी करना चाहते हैं, मतदाता की जागृति बनाना चाहते हैं। यही एक तरीका है, और कोई तरीका है नहीं। जैसे आपके घर में चोर ना आए, उसका क्या तरीका है कि आप अपने घर की रखवाली करिए। वैसे ही आज की व्यवस्था में ये मीडिया की कंपनियां आपको जो चाहे सो मनमानी बात पेश करें, इसका क्या तरीका है। कुछ जगहों पर कहा गया सेंसरशिप, वो सेंसरशिप आखिर में सत्ता का खिलौना बन जाती है। वैसे एक प्रेस काउंसिल ऑफ इंडिया है, लेकिन ये अपने संभाले नहीं समझते, ये तो पूरी दुनिया का खेल बन गया ना। तो हमको अपनी तरफ से, नागरिकों की तरफ से निगरानी का काम करना होगा, और हो सके तो पत्रकारों का भी सम्मान करना होगा। जो हिम्मत की पत्रकारिता करते हैं, उनको पैसा कम मिले लेकिन सम्मान ज्यादा मिले, तो वो भी रोल मॉडल बन सकते हैं। वो भी एक दूसरा तरीका होगा कि जो चैनल सही दिखाते हैं, जो पत्रकार सही बताते हैं, उनको जब सताया जाए, दबाया जाए, तो हम उनके पक्ष में खड़े हों। जैसे अभी एक वकील प्रशांत भूषण के खिलाफ सर्वोच्च न्यायालय मुकदमा आ गया, सारे देश में शोर मच गया कि प्रशांत भूषण को सजा देना गलत होगा, न्यायपालिका को अपने पैर पीछे हटाने पड़े। ये सब भी कुछ तरीके होंगे नागरिक एकता और नागरिक सक्रियता के।
थैंक यू सो मच सर। बाकी यूट्यूब पे भी कुछ कमेंट्स हैं जो इसी सवाल के इर्द गिर्द हैं, जिसका जवाब आपने ऑलरेडी दे दिया है। मीडिया से काफी सवाल आ रहे हैं, और दूसरा है पार्टी को कैसे हम
हाँ,
पार्टी
तो
के अंदर कैसे
रणवीर
हम।
जी, आप दोनों को, मीडिया वालों को भी खबर कर दें और नेताओं को खबर कर दें कि लोग आपको देख रहे हैं। रैफल यूनिवर्सिटी में कम से कम आपकी
हाँ हाँ
हरकतों
हाँ,
की नोटिस ले लिया जा रहा है।
नहीं सर, ये
होशियार हो
तो
जाओ।
काफी हाँ, बच्चों को अब वो जो इन्फॉर्मल एंजाइटी का एक प्रॉब्लम आ गया है लोगों के अंदर, पब्लिक ओपिनियन के अंदर, कि जो बताया जा रहा है वो सही नहीं भी हो सकता है। तो ये अब बच्चों के अंदर भी आ गया है, और हम टीचरों का काम है वो क्रिटिकल कॉन्शसनेस को इनकलकेट करना। तो इसलिए हम लोग आप जैसे लोगों का सहयोग बहुत जरूरी है, ताकि
नहीं, मुझे
आपके
बहुत अच्छा लगा और मैं
हाँ
आशा
हाँ,
करता
थैंक यू
हूँ कि
सो
आप
मच।
इस तरह के संवाद को जारी रखेंगे और आगे
हम्म,
कोशिश यही करिए कि हफ्ते में कम से कम एक बार इस तरह की सिलेबस से जुड़ी हुई लेकिन क्लासरूम के बाहर चर्चा होती रहे। और आपको भी
सर उसकी
वेबिनार
चर्चा
करने का भी फायदा है। आप किसी को भी
हम्म
कह सकते हैं कि भाई तुम्हारा खाली 1 घंटे का समय चाहिए, आने जाने का खर्च नहीं लगेगा और आने जाने में समय भी नहीं लगेगा। ठीक है ना? बहुत धन्यवाद,
थैंक यू
बहुत
थैंक
धन्यवाद।
यू सो मच सर।
दूसरे
ओके,
कार्यक्रम में जाऊं आपकी अनुमति से।
जी सर,
आप
जी
सबको
सर, जी
बहुत
सर।
बधाई, बहुत धन्यवाद। नमस्कार।
ओके, थैंक यू।
हेलो दिलीप जी।